cultural enforcement that shames women for doing that. I can even look at conservatives. I mean, I have a list here of all the conservatives that are divorced. It's not, I mean, look at how we handled the Crowder situation. Look at Lauren Southern. She just got an article written about her poor divorce story. There's no shame, even from conservatives, for divorce.
I think the movement for like abolishing no-fault divorce, though, I think it is gaining traction. I'm hearing about it more and more, and it's partly due to people like you, but I think there are more and more conservatives who weren't really thinking about this. It's not like they supported it, but that it just wasn't on their radar, and I think it's starting to become part of the conversation where, hey, maybe we should talk about this in a way that 10 years ago it wasn't even being mentioned. So I'm actually somewhat hopeful that maybe in the future we could do something about that. I think that is a meaningful change that we could make that would, again, I'm not advocating for state marriage, but for those of people who do care about government marriage but are concerned about that, I think that actually is something we could change.
Yeah, I think it sounds. I hate to be a pessimist. I just don't see any evidence that's happening. That's like we could say, we want that to happen, but it's not like a wish list.
I have a question. What is the number one podcast among women?
Probably some murder one.
Probably Call Her Daddy.
Yeah,
that's got to be because they were close. They were close to Joe Rogan.
And what do they talk about on that show?
Sex.
Yeah.
It's like,
how to give proper blowjobs.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild because,
and she just got married. That's a crazy thing.
I was thinking about this because it is largely true crime. Women listen to a lot of murder mysteries. But I think was it Call Her Daddy?
Yeah.
And it's like kind of vapid, degenerate sex talk. And what do guys listen to? No question, it's Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. Yeah.
And what does Joe Rogan talk about?
Protein, MMA. My husband loves Joe Rogan.
And cultural news and political news.
Yeah.
And so I bring that up because I'm willing to bet the majority of people listening to this show right now are dudes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because on YouTube, my audience is probably for my political channel around 80% male, and that I was excited when I started my pop culture entertainment channel. I was like, finally, I can have more girl audiences because we're just talking about movies. No, 95% male. So I don't know. I guess I'm not talking about the right movies.
Yeah.
Or the right activities.
Yeah, so I had a question with the Crowder case. I told you I was going to bring this up. Why, you said on stream there's some information behind the scenes, but if you're willing to say, this vague stuff, like what is it?
So officially my stance is, aside from what I've already said, Crowder and I currently work for, and he used to work for Blaze TV. We do actually have, some NDAs and non-disparagements, so I will not be commenting further. And I know that's frustrating, but that's why I'm not.
But then why did you make?
I'm on Crowder's side.
Yeah, but why did you make 5 videos on it if you're gonna say now I can't comment?
Oh, I can't comment on what is not publicly available.
Okay.
I can talk about what publicly is out there.
Okay, so publicly, Hillary on video said he wasn't abusive. Why was that not reported on?
About him not being abusive?
Yeah, it was on video.
I mean,
and so,
I have problems with
you
the
had
way
something where you alluded in your video on him that he was abusive after you played the clip of him talking to his wife. So my question is, if you're going to report on that, why did you not report on the video of her saying he wasn't?
He wasn't abusive. Which video you're talking about? Was the one that I recently did with Jared?
It was no, not the one where you did with Jared. I'm saying there was video of Hillary Crowder saying that Stephen was not abusive, and all of the conservatives were super willing to throw him under the bus the last year, make a ton of money off of it, except for Tim.
Was I the only one?
You were the only one who I thought was fair. I really did. I have never been so disappointed in conservatives because
there with Stephen, and I think with Stephen, like if it were just his divorce, wouldn't have talked about it, but he is someone who's in this industry who has a pattern of basically blowing up personal relationships. And I think
right, but that doesn't make him an abuser, right? You can be an asshole, but that doesn't make you abusive.
I definitely don't think he's physically abusive or anything like that.
Well, yeah, but you alluded that he was like you said that he was abusing his wife in that clip. So if she has a clip that says, hey, he's not, I would think, oh wow, all the conservatives you guys would be the first to report, except for Tim. He was the only one who did. And it's like, you were willing to make video.
Well, if you're, are you asking like the ring cam footage about him?
No,
talking to his
it was
wife?
video of his wife in court, and she said he was not abusive. This is on camera. The nanny also testified, not
Well,
abusive.
I think my video specifically was about the nanny footage, which I mean, to tell your spouse that you do not love them, I do think that's, emotionally abusive.
Well, I wouldn't say that's emotionally abusive. No. And because he says you do not show me love, and what he was referring to in the video, if you really listen, pay attention, and there was a clip cut out, was that she was not showing him love because she didn't listen to him. And it's like trad wives. Why wasn't the question, why didn't you walk the dog like you were told?
Yeah.
But
if you're really,
there's a lot to do with the whole Steven Crowder situation that I'm just not going to comment on, publicly.
But you were willing to publicly make video after video after video
about what was publicly available.
And so is the nanny footage. Quick
question. Isn't it confirmed that I could be wrong about this, that Crowder's wife deleted a bunch of footage from
over 100? That's important, you would think.
Yeah.
That's
conservatives.
So Actual Justice Warrior did this whole breakdown about it. That's something that Crowder's team is alleging, but I don't know if the court itself has verified or backed it up at this point.
And I'll tell you why I knew it was full of shit when I first heard it, because I've interviewed so many men that have gone through the same exact thing. And what women do is they poison the well for years. So they'll go around to all of his friends and drop little tidbits of abuse. Now, the common ones are emotional abuse, physical abuse. Some throw in the pedo accusation. That's devastating to men. That's a devastating one. They'll say it about their family. So they'll do this for years. Then when they come out and say he's abusive, they have all of these people ready to back them up in white knight. And then typically what you get is an out of context clip that they throw out there. And so I knew what was happening when I first saw the video.
And you can tell from her Twitter that she's obviously a crazy woman. And I personally think emotional abuse is a myth. I know you said
I agree with you
seem to have a different perspective. Would you think emotional abuse is a valid reason to have a divorce if you support no fault divorce?
No, but something can be unacceptable behavior, though, still within a marriage. Absolutely.
But who are you to tell a man how to speak to his wife in his house? Isn't that out of order?
I mean, you do that all the time. You call other men simps all the time.
But I don't tell them how to talk to their wife. That's your business.
That is absolutely not true.
Okay,
there are
name it. Go ahead.
For sure. There are tons of times where there will be actual men in your comments saying disagreeing, and you call them simps.
When I say simps, it typically means out of order. So typically when I say that, I'm referring to a pattern of behavior where they're putting women on a pedestal. That's typically what I'm describing.
But you'll say that about
this is, but we're going to the what about. You're changing the topic.
No,
who are you? No. It's a different, because
it's the same topic.
My original question is, who are you to tell a man how to talk to his wife in his home?
Well, I don't.
Do you think you should be able to tell a man how to talk to his wife in his house?
I think that men should conduct themselves with biblical standards when it comes to.
But answer my question. Do you think it's your place to tell men how to talk to their wives in their home? Yes or no.
I think it is perfectly reasonable to say that a man should hold himself to a Christian standard in the home.
So you do think it's your place. And this is what I mean when I say a lot of conservative women aren't really conservative.
That's true. Well, what it ends up being is woman sad, man mean. Woman sad, man bad.
Because you're first from a biblical point of view, you are supposed to be obedient to your husband in all things. So before conservative women will talk about the disobedience, their first thing is their tone.
Yes, the tone policing.
That's
super
before,
out of control.
But they never. I could show this because there is video after video after video. Not a single conservative woman said, "Oh, hey, she didn't listen to her husband." Mm-hmm. Not one. That's crazy to me. And then we want to say, men go get married to conservative women. Most of them aren't really conservative.
Let's bring up the Lauren Southern story, because I think this was actually a big component of Lauren's story. This article was written, I think it was Unheard. It was written by a woman who got divorced. And in the story, I think one of the issues was Lauren realizing that just being this obedient, good wife to this man wasn't working. He kept threatening to divorce her, and it seemed like nothing was working. That was her. I believe that's
her side of the story.
Well, for sure.
And so I doubt it.
But
you were just let me get this straight. Okay, so nobody asked question. You were this perfect angel. You were a perfect angel. All you did was listen to your husband, and then he threatened to divorce you all the time. Do you guys hear these stories? You believe this? Come on.
But that's why I mentioned biblical patriarchy. Lauren talks about how even before they were married, he would do things like leave for days on end, like not talk to her. There were red flags.
Why did he leave? And that's what we never talk about. A lot of times when men leave, it is because there is a negative behavior that we don't talk about. Why? For example, what if she cheated? I'm not saying she did. I don't know. What if she cheated? Would that be an acceptable reason for him to leave for 3 days?
I know, but we don't know. We don't know, even if that is a red flag, you have a responsibility as a woman to choose to choose a strong leader for yourself. So if you're going into this 4 months and you're already seeing red flags, it's not trad to say, I will marry him anyway. Like, I've not seen Christian dating accounts say, ignore all the red flags.
Are they a Christian couple though?
I think he is.
Is she Christian?
Like
what are we?
Yeah. So, but my point is that I like Lauren, but she was kind of portraying as this is why my trad relationship didn't work out. I don't think it was a trad relationship. Like, look at that.
No, that's my point. Even trad women do not behave trad.
But when I
say traditional is family first above all. The family comes first before me.
But I think maybe there's a bias in the system because the women that we hear about are prominent political commentators. They're working women.
Yes.
The traditional mothers don't go on. This is a really good point in terms of the rise of feminism as a whole. All these news articles and these columnists, these women writing about what women should or shouldn't do are not traditional mothers. They're working women in offices. So they have this natural bias. My life is good and everything I'm doing is correct. And then the women who are like, my family matters more than anything else, and I'm not concerned about what's going on outside this house. What matters inside this house is my thing. She's not writing these articles. We're not hearing her perspective.
Well, I mean, I don't call myself traditional or conservative because I'm like, whose tradition, what tradition? That's very vague, very nebulous. And conservative, we haven't conserved anything. There's nothing that's been conserved. So I spent 20 years raising a family before I started doing this, and I kind of got into it by accident. I wrote this little book thinking maybe my dad would read it and maybe my grandkids would read it, and it just kind of blew up.
Now you're killing it.
So now here I am. But I have 5 children. I've homeschooled them. Like, I spent 20 years in my house, in my kitchen, chained to the stove. No, I'm just kidding. Doing all of that before I started making commentary on this sort of thing. And yes, I'm sorry, but if you have a whole career outside of your marriage, that complicates things. Women don't want to talk about that, about how difficult it is when you are over here trying to hustle for your career and, you have goals that are not related to your family and antithetical to your family, how that is going to interrupt your family life and your marriage.
I want to trigger as many feminists as possible, so I'm going to get into this.
Let's go.
Get to this point. So there was a bunch of data that was released by dating websites on the societal value of men and women. And I think it was OkCupid, something like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, showing that societal value tracked among the willingness of people to interact with each other. Women start their whole lives from zero through all their teen years at 100% societal value. They're protected, they're offered opportunities, they have easier time getting entry-level jobs, and men start at zero. Yes. Young men are considered unskilled, non-valuable. Break rocks, kid, earn your place. And then around the mid-20s, a shift starts happening where women start to experience a decline in social value while men experience an incline. Yep. Men are becoming more skilled and more valuable as they become stronger and more capable. And not even all men, only a small percentage of them. Whereas as women age, society values them less and less for the obvious reason of the intrinsic value society had was the ability to have kids. This results in, if your whole life everyone around you is saying you are the best, and then one day you start hearing everyone say you're not so great and men are better, you start to feel like something's being taken away from you.
Yes.
And so one of the hypotheses I have is that for the average guy who grows up in the gutter is more likely to be homeless, more likely to be a victim of crime, less likely to get entry-level jobs, much harder at a younger age to get a job than women in their teenage years. These guys are like, man, it's rough. Now they're 26 and they're like, life is finally getting good. They're tolerant of the crap. They're used to things being cruddy. And so now they're kind of comfortable. They start hearing women say, man, it's not fair. I'm having these things taken away from me. And the guy thinks, this is the least concerning thing I have ever had to deal with in my life. But that then confers to the men saying, sure, fine, whatever, I don't care. I don't care if you're going to do X, Y, or Z, or the law says this. I've literally eaten out of a dumpster before. This is not my problem. And so women experiencing decline creates a pressure on our legal system and our society to continually shift everything back into benefiting women.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of women in their 20s and especially into their 30s, they experience this, and there are so many TikTok videos of like women in their 30s in their car crying about how they're no longer desirable, because a lot of, women's worth is the dating marketplace, the sexual marketplace. So when these women aren't married and they don't have kids, they are faced with the reality that, yes, they do have less societal value. And it's terrifying for them because it's only going to get worse. But that is why, as a woman, motherhood is amazing. Like, I'm going to be turning 30, and I have a lot of friends who are single, 30, like unmarried. They're freaking out. Their prospects look very different from mine. Like, I'm married. I have a family. Like, I'm actually of the opinion, like, now my life is really just beginning. Like, now I'm going on the up and up. We can have more kids. It's a beautiful thing. Like, my life is almost just beginning, where it's like, if you are the single girl boss, your life is kind of ending at that point. And it's so disappointing to see that they don't realize that it didn't have to be this way for them.
With greater, I think all of you are probably have heard of greater male variability hypothesis. Are you familiar? So if we look at the strength chart, actually, it's pretty interesting. You can see that the median male strength, it's wider than female strength. So greater male variability hypothesis is that there are more failure men, but there are more exceptional men, and women tend to be more average.
We cluster around the mean.
Well, so think about what this means for entering the marketplace. You want to be the girl boss. You want to be the CEO. If you look at grip strength, which is not indicative, doesn't necessarily correlate specifically with capability to run a company, look at the guys in the high end, which are triple the median grip strength, the highest end of guys. There's 500 Fortune 500s. There are 330 million Americans. Let's say there's 150, let's say there's 80 million adult males. Only 500 will be top CEOs. That means the girl boss who is in her late 20s, entering her 30s, and thinks, I want to be the CEO, not the mom, has to compete with the highest end of the male capability spectrum, which tends to be, due to greater male variability hypothesis, there's going to be 10,000 male geniuses of insane strength fighting each other, and there's going to be 100 females. That means the likelihood of you seeing a Fortune 500 CEO female is going to be very, very low unless we pass DEI laws.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if this is a dumb question, but why does grip strength have to do with CEOs? Grip strength?
That's why I said this is not a direct correlation between.
Okay, that's why I was confused. I'm like, what is that?
But it tends to be this way in a lot of men.
Fine.
Where even
this
the exceptional men are so far ahead of everybody else that it's like,
okay,
this is simply an example of greater male variability. It does not correlate with CEOs. It's an example of how in grip strength, almost all women cluster right at the same point, but men, look at this.
I think IQ is similar.
Yeah, IQ is similar. Again, women are more clustered around the mean, so their curve is looking more like this. Men look like this, so you're going to have dumber men for sure, but you're also going to have way smarter men.
Sorry. I know. I don't. I just look at life outcomes. I know all the academics will say the science is proven, whatever. You
gotta trust the science, bro.
Look, I'm sorry. I have to believe what's in front of my eyes. I've interviewed 1,000 men, 1,000 women. Women make way dumber life choices. You won't convince me otherwise.
Probably some of the dumbest life choices you could make would be the ones that lead you to be homeless. Homeless are overwhelmingly men.
Oh, let's talk about the homeless. Actually, no.
Wait. I gotta address your point. I gotta address your point. You said women make worse life choices. I'd say a man who married a woman who divorced him and took his stuff made a poor life choice.
That's true. People make their own decisions, responsible for their own actions.
Yeah, I think the equivalent of that would be if I get into a contract with you and you're paid to fuck me over, steal my kids, and take my money.
Yeah, you screwed up. That's your fault.
Right. So then men shouldn't get married by that logic. So
don't get married unless you're absolutely sure you know what you're doing.
Or have children by that logic, because women are always paid and they're paid to leave.
Well, I mean, I'm going to push back on the idea that women are paid to leave,
I actually want
if you're married to like a rich guy, you are better off if you're just interested financially. You have access to greater resources by staying married.
But what is your argument that men should get married anyway, even if they risk divorce?
No. My argument is that men should pick for themselves, but I would never downplay the risk of marriage, and I think it could happen to anyone.
Yeah, poor life choice.
Even a good
if they're
woman,
watching your show and they believe what you're saying, they made a dumb choice.
Even all right, rude, but
that's
even
true. That's your point.
even a good woman. Sometimes women in their 20s change, so they might say one thing in their 20s, and then their 30s and 40s they might switch. Look at
men shouldn't get married.
Look at conservative comment. No, because they are still incentivized to leave.
Right,
and
so men shouldn't get married.
Oh, wait, should or shouldn't?
Shouldn't.
Well, I'm saying men should pick for themselves, but I would never downplay that risk. But I want to go.
If they're going to listen to everything you just said and then choose to get married, they made a poor life choice.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I am saying that from a contractual standpoint, it would not be a contract that favors them.
Right, so the point is, if your argument is the system is weighted against you,
correct,
you can get divorced, then the logical thing a smart man could do is not get married and have kids.
Yeah, if they wanted a contract that favored them, yes.
Right.
But I want to go back to the homeless. And the problem you get with a lot of this stuff is that there's not a lot of studies put into men's issues. So a lot of times what you see with the data is you're not getting the full picture, because most studies that are funded, it's for women, and the government is run by feminists. So there's a guy, he's out of Michigan. His name's Terrence Popp, really, really smart guy. And he actually followed 1,800 divorces in Michigan. And what he did was he found the reason for the divorces, and he actually followed a lot of those men to homeless shelters. And he found that if he goes to homeless shelters, 70% of the men owe child support. A lot of men become homeless because of the system.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but that's my point. But the way you're painting it is like, oh, if they're homeless, that's just a poor life choice.
But I mean, from your own logic, if you have sex with a guy who knocks you up then leaves, that's a poor life choice, right? These are all, we can say, poor life choices to some degree that gets you there. Doesn't absolve the other person of responsibility either, but you are ultimately at least a little bit culpable for the situation.
I'm not saying they're not culpable, but what I'm saying is that he shouldn't have to be enslaved for 18 years to a woman because he made a poor life choice. And there's no female equivalent of that.
I mean,
no, because the woman can always put the guy on child support for the most part.
Having to raise a child that perhaps you did not want in single motherhood, some women would say that would be being enslaved.
But she still has the choice to abort. And adoption as well. There's a case in Utah where a woman wanted to give up her son for adoption. The husband wanted it. He wanted to raise. He said, "Please let me raise." He had no rights. The kid's gone.
Do you think women should be drafted?
I think as long as we can vote, we should be drafted. I think it's better that we didn't vote.
Agreed.
But I think if you're going to give women the freedom, like as long as we have the freedom, give them the responsibility that comes with it, or you can opt out.
Yeah.
I talked to Vivek Ramaswamy about this a year ago. He doesn't really stand in this position today, but it was a brilliant idea. He said, maybe it should be, if you want to vote, you have to sign up for the Selective Service.
Service through citizenship.
So this doesn't mean you will be drafted, because we haven't had a draft in 50 some odd years. It just means that men and women both would have to say, I am willing to fight when the need arises, and then you're allowed to vote. What would happen? Overwhelmingly, liberals would no longer vote, and women would no longer vote.
Yeah.
Right. But that's why you also have to get rid of the 19th Amendment, because I don't know if you guys saw this, but Sheetz, Tim, we're getting into this. So Sheetz, it's this kind of gas station company. They're actually being taken to court by a federal agency for discriminating against black applicants. Why, you might say? Well, it turns out part of their screening process is they do a background check on applicants, and they don't want people who have a criminal background. Sounds reasonable enough. But what the government found was that black applicants were actually being ruled out of the running for jobs at a higher rate than white or Hispanic applicants.
What does that have to do with the 19th Amendment?
No, it's the Civil Rights Act, right?
Oh.
So basically, the federal agents are actually acknowledging that perhaps this discrimination was not purposeful, right? They weren't trying to discriminate against Black people, but still, because the outcome was inequitable toward Black people, they were still running afoul of the Civil Rights Act, which prevents discrimination based on like immutable characteristics. So I am in favor of service through citizenship, but the reason why the 19th Amendment is a problem with that is that if it were to be the case that there was some sort of metric for service for voting and it happened that women were disproportionately not represented, I could see they would absolutely make the case that that requirement was running afoul of the 19th Amendment because the outcomes were unequal. Yeah.
Does everybody agree to get rid of the 19th? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yes.
What are your reasons for it, Pearl?
That women shouldn't vote because we don't do equal work. So I think if we're not running the infrastructure, if we're not in the military like men are, and we're not paying taxes like men are, I don't think that we should vote.
Or dying on oil rigs.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's basically like women aren't contributing enough to society in the same ways with like the taxes and stuff like that.
I think that men are more capable than women by and large, like as a group. But I was trying to think about how you could apply it to today, because I don't think today you could just say women shouldn't vote. I mean, I do like the T-shirts. Go get them at theaudacitynetwork.com. They're funny T-shirts, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the only way you'd limit female vote.
But I guess I want to know, like, I want to get to your reasoning why.
Because I think if you're going to have a say in the policies, you need to have some skin in the game. Mm-hmm. So you need to be running the infrastructure. You need to be a net I think only 20% of people are net taxpayers anyway.
Very small, yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe own land. You know, we could go back and forth about what exactly you would need to require in order to vote, but I think you have to have some skin in the game. Otherwise, you're just going to keep voting for benefits.
Net taxpayer, real quick, just so everyone understands, something like only 43% of people pay taxes because the rest are on, like, they don't reach that threshold.
Right.
But of that 43, many are receiving more in government benefits than they actually pay.
They're still not net taxpayers.
I like the net taxpayer for